Did y'all hear the news? Because they found oil in Jamaica after searching for almost 80 years. And this isn't the initial discovery of oil in Jamaica. It's been discovered previously, but the companies that discovered it didn't have the knowledge required in order to extract the oil so that we could commercialize it. But United Oil and Gas strongly believes that they're equipped to complete the task. When I found this out, I got on the media and I tried to educate my people, and they started bashing me and trashing me, all because I mentioned cartel. Like, what the hell? And some of them were saying I'm telling a lie. And I don't know why, but when the Rasta says it, they think it's a lie. But when they hear from that guy, they gonna believe him, even if he's trying to deceive them. Since some of y'all think I'm a loose screw and I ain't got a clue, I got something for you. Check this out. It's a presentation from United Oil and Gas themselves.
It's a very close relationship with the island of Jamaica and the government, not only the host government, but the political opposition as well. Everybody's very keen and supportive to see this well drilled, purely because of the economics, the potential upside and value. The size of the prize is huge for what is a reasonably low or minimum investment. And in fact, as a demonstration of the support of the government, they've kindly hosted us this evening for this evening's shareholder event, which we're very excited about.
The energy demand for the world is going to be fulfilled all the way out to 2050 by at least between 40 and 50% coming from fossil fuels. We're in an energy transition. Transitions take decades. And there's a growing realization that reserves have to be replaced in order to meet that energy demand.
Well, the potential is huge. It's a potentially life-changing license for the island of Jamaica. This project could be potentially 7 billion barrels of recoverable oil. It could potentially double the GDP of the island as a standalone project, and it could also generate over $30 billion of tax take for the island of Jamaica. So the scale is quite substantial.
The Jamaican opportunity is really a unique one. It's a massive acreage holding, over 22,000 square kilometres, which is the equivalent of 3.5 million football pitches, and really the opportunity to be first mover in a country that is energy hungry, that would like to replace its imports with indigenous supply. More than that, the way that we're looking at Jamaica now and the technical work that's advanced, we see a real opportunity for a string of pearls in terms of exploration and development. And we're really looking at early commercialization and how we can do that. And with that, we've built a development around. It's conventional. It's using floating production and storage offshore systems, such as used in the Stabroek license in Guyana, for example. And actually, we have many similarities to the Stabroek license. So in the look at how we would go about commercializing these opportunities, we've really started to attract and engage with a number of partners, and we're really taking those conversations forward. And of course, our joint purpose with the Jamaican government is to get to a point of commercializing and getting to production as early as possible.
It's frontier exploration. There's not too many of those projects left in the world, and the fact that a company of our size has 100% of 29,000 square kilometres of acreage is really, really impressive. And it's in our hands now to move it forward, and as I've touched upon, the size of the prize is so big for what is really a minimal investment up front. So I think we're really excited now moving forward into the remainder of this year, our existing work programme, and hopefully drilling an exploration well in 2025 or 2026.
As I was watching the video, I started thinking to myself, if they've been searching for oil for almost 80 years, why does this company think that they'll be successful this time around? And then they said this.
This is an excellent opportunity for monetizing exploration prospectivity. We have over 7 billion barrels, and we have a very small area of 3D, which if I walk over here, we have 3D over this area, and we have the rest of the acreage here. And with that, we have identified 21 prospects and leads. So when we shoot more 3D and when we reprocess the existing 3D, that is only going to grow. So massive upside potential here. All the wells that have been drilled to date have had oil shows, even way back to the 1950s. There are numerous seeps identified and sampled both onshore and offshore. There's seismic evidence for hydrocarbon migration. You don't have to be a seismologist to see it. You can see the chimneys rising up to the surface, the gas chimneys. The Cretaceous source rock development is that we've done some basin modelling that shows where the source rocks are and how that has been built up in the basin. We have supportive government policy in fiscal terms, and essentially the resource here is comparable to the Stabroek resource in Guyana. So massive potential in the Walton Morant, and the potential to actually produce up to and exceed 1 million barrels of oil production per day. I suspect that some of you might have a question in your minds, which is, why now and not before? After all, the first well drilled here was almost 70 years ago. First, it is usual rather than unusual for frontier basins to take decades before monetization occurs. And if we think about Guyana, for example, which is the most recent frontier basin to be opened up, the first well was in the 80s and first discovery was in May 2015. The sheer scale of data acquisition and technical work that has to take place before you can work up a prospect inventory that sufficiently de-risks your acreage so that you can drill is huge, and it takes time. It's just as simple as that. So, essentially, where we are today, what's changed? Well, we understand much more about the exploration concepts here, where to target in terms of the offshore drilling. We've got a much better understanding of the basin, of the regional source rock development, etc., and the geological concepts. And we've got some high-quality 3D seismic, which we're going to improve upon and reprocess and acquire more. I just want to give you just a flavour of why, do we have any technical evidence to say all this, or are we just talking? No, actually, what we look for in any work that we do, if we're a prudent operator, prudent company, we look for evidence of a working petroleum system. We look for the source rock. Where did these hydrocarbons come from? Is that source rock here? Where did it come from? How did it develop? Have we got hydrocarbon migration into our acreage? Do we have reservoir? And do we have a cap, a seal on top of our reservoir that means that our hydrocarbons haven't escaped? So as I said, when we are talking with potential partners and we're giving the full presentation, we have about an hour and a half of technical data that really goes through all of those elements that I talked about: the presence of a working petroleum system, the presence of reservoir, the permeability of that reservoir, the source rock that generated the hydrocarbons, and then the seal that's keeping those hydrocarbons in. So all 11 wells that have been drilled so far have found hydrocarbons. We've got the documented occurrences of live surface oil seeps and outcrop oil staining. We have satellite data that indicates the presence of repeated slick anomalies on the sea surface. We have seismic evidence for hydrocarbon migration, reservoir, trap, and seal. And onshore outcrop analogues also show us that we have source rocks present, reservoir rock, and seals. So from a technical point of view, lots of work has been done, and we are confident that we have all of the elements that are required here to make a discovery.
Well, how does this benefit Jamaica? So Jamaica hasn't invested anything in the discovery of the oil. So we'll only be getting 42% of the revenue generated, and that's on the lower end. Only country that gets less than that is Peru with 41%. And that's because we didn't invest anything into the discovery of the oil. The more we invest into it, the more negotiating power we have to increase that percentage. In the video, they do a lot of comparison to Guyana, which gets 50%. But that 42% that Jamaica is going to get isn't the final number, because there is still some time where the government can decide to invest and negotiate a higher percentage. But how does this help the average person? Well, Jamaica is an oil-hungry nation. On an annual basis, we spend $2 billion on oil. Now, if we're able to replace that with our own oil source, that'll be a huge saving. And that will benefit the average person because they will lower prices at the pump and the cost of energy will go down.
Jamaica currently has over 900 megawatts of thermal power generation relying on imported oil and gas supplies that could be replaced by associated gas from the Walton Morant discoveries. Given that most of the power generation and gas demand is on the southern coast of Jamaica, it's easy to land gas to shore and replace imported oil and gas with indigenous clean gas for power generation.
In addition to that, we'll have a natural resource that we'll be able to export, and that will increase our GDP. And they're projecting that we'll be able to extract 1 million barrels per day. And based on their projections, this oil reserve will double the GDP of Jamaica. And that doesn't mean that everybody's going to get a check, because that's not how economics work. But as the economy continues to grow, that's going to benefit us in a multitude of different ways, as long as the government doesn't misappropriate the funds. And that's where the people of Jamaica start to get pessimistic. But if we can't trust our government to do the right thing, then that means that we need to make some changes. And there's a lot of people in my comments talking about how Jamaica's government is corrupt and the math just ain't mathing, because when they calculate the amount of people that voted, it's a little bit over 30%. So y'all complain on social media, but you don't cast your vote so that we can make a change. That's strange. But I can't really say nothing. I ain't vote either. And if the government does do right by us, Jamaica is definitely going to have a bright future, because the oil revenue, along with all of the other things that is happening in Jamaica, is just going to create a domino effect. You're going to see a lot more people investing into the island, and there's a possibility that our currency will get stronger. Not only will our currency increase, property values will as well. So anyone that owns land will become wealthier as a result of this. I was on a TikTok live the other day, and a gentleman mentioned that if everything works out, then all of the education in Jamaica should be free. And I think that's a really good idea, because that's actually one of our weaknesses as a nation. The fact that certain people are able to obtain quality education, whereas the have-nots don't have that privilege. If all of our youth are able to have a quality education, that's going to put us in position to have a much more prosperous future. And it's about that time. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so that you're notified every time I make a new post. Until next time.